In a world that is robbing dudes of their dudeness, three normal, everyday, middle-aged dudes are taking a stand for dudes everywhere. Join us as we talk about life as a dude in today's world.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to the Dudefinity podcast, the only podcast dedicated to all things dude. My name is Sterling, and joining me as always, elated that his name didn't come up for his connections to the CCP last night. And George.
Yeah, dude. I gotta tell you, so we're just gonna dive right in pretty heavily here. That was a doozy. There was a lot there.
That was not what I was expecting. But
Not
okay.
even for a little bit, but I mean, to anybody who's discrediting it, saying there's not something to it without even looking at anything, do yourself a favor. Why don't you actually read the documents first? I'm withholding my judgment on anything until I can deep dive through that website to see what's going on. I'm gonna read the documents. Typically a president doesn't declassify something like that if there's nothing to it. So let's just see what it says. I'm not going to say one way or the other, but I'm going to say to the people that I'm hearing saying, oh, he's just trying to steal an election already. And, he's trying to frame the midterms and because he has no message and all this other stuff. Sorry for you guys. You should probably go read it. It's probably pretty true. Hate to say it. Where there's smoke, there's usually fire, guys. Just go look into it.
I mean, I guess we'll have to wait and see what it actually all says, man. But I get why they're thinking that. That was a thought that crossed my mind. And I don't trust any politician.
No,
that's not a thing that I do. It doesn't matter who it is. But if it, I get why somebody might think that, because that was very out of the blue. Just, and then you look at things going on in Iran, and all of a sudden it's like, well, we're back to bombing them, and they're trying to blow up merchant ships because they're terrible, and it's this speedy in and out that I think was hoped for. Doesn't seem like it's really going to happen. So, if I were a conspiracy theorist, I could see where they were coming from.
I mean, maybe, but I'm just gonna say I'm gonna reserve judgment because I tend to, I want to go through them with a deep dive, and I need to do a deep dive on those files and see what they say and kind of what's there. But I do believe it. I mean, I do believe that there was election fraud in our elections for years. I do believe that if it's a computer, it's probably been hacked. Who would it be hacked by? Probably one of the world's largest hackers, right? It makes sense, right? Why would China want to interfere in our elections? Destabilization is the easiest way to beat us. We're going to die from within kind of thing. Now, I will say, when it comes to Iran, I think that that's coming to a screeching halt very quickly. Um, uh, you know, the Saudis and the Omanis and the Qatarians and, the Jordanians and, you just name the plethora of groups over there right now that are just tired of Iran. And they're really not tired of Iran. They're tired of the IRGC. I think that you're going to see, JD Vance said it best yesterday. We don't have to fight wars with troops on the ground, and we're not going to. We don't need to do that at all. And so I think that we won't put troops on the ground, but I do think that we have upped our pressure campaign pretty significantly to the point that they don't know what they're going to do. And so it's on the Iranian people, and I'm hoping that the Iranian people are hearing what's being said. It's on a lot of the Iranian people to stand up and there's going to be losses. It's going to feel bold. It's going to feel like you can't do it. You got to eradicate your own cancer, man. I mean, if you truly want the freedom you guys say you want, you got, much like the only way America's going to die is from within, you guys got to take these people out too. Like, we can only do but so much to help you. And as we do more, we are unfortunately going to blow up your bridges. We are going to blow up your energy infrastructure. We are going to make it so impossible for the IRGC to exist that you guys are going to it's going to take years to rebuild. So just do yourself a favor and rise up. this is your Arab Spring moment. This is your time. This is your Egyptian. This is what Egypt went through several years ago. This is what Syria went through with Bashar al-Assad. It's time to stand up, Iranian people. It just is. And you have the full support of the world behind you. You do.
Yeah, yeah, man. I don't know. I don't know if that's the result that we're gonna get. I've heard some things about a renewal in nationalism in Iran. Like I say, two sides to every coin. We'll see. We'll see. I still think it was the right move. I still think it was the right thing to do ultimately because that regime can't have a nuclear weapon. You've seen how they've acted when no, I don't want
They're
to call
bombing
them.
their friends. They're bombing their friends. They're quote unquote friends. They're bombing their neighbors.
Yeah, they're just
they can't have that. They're not level headed.
It's not so much that they're not level headed; it's that they're desperate, and desperation does strange things. And it's like
fair.
They're being
Like that time you bought that hooker in Vegas and got arrested?
No. Totally different. It's not like
you weren't desperate. I got you.
No.
You just had an extra couple $100.
Yeah, why
huh?
not? Yeah. So it's one of those things where it's like the force that you're up against, you can't really do any damage to. You know what I mean? You can't really harm in any way.
Yeah.
And their whole plan is going to be to last out American resolve. If this isn't over by the midterms, or probably months before the midterms, and we don't have a lot of time, their hope is that there's a change in which political parties in power, and that puts an end to it. That being said, the reality is that they're hoping to outlast us, but they're pressed up against a corner, and the only thing that they can do is kind of the same thing that Russia's doing, is just lash out at anybody that they can.
Keep walking down the path that is broken. You know what I mean? And they know it. They know it doesn't lead to a good result. The other thing I'll tell you too, and I'm curious your thoughts on this. I want to ask you this. At this point, it looks like NATO is talking about potentially designating the IRGC as an international terrorist group. I think it opens up a lot of different things for different countries to really step in and help out at that point. Because especially with everything going on in Yemen with the Houthis, in northern Yemen with the Houthis, and then you've got I just think that you're going to see Middle East kind of step in and take over some of their stuff. I mean, I don't know if you just saw, but I just saw an announcement. We agreed to a $2 billion weapons deal with the Saudis, where we're going to sell the Saudis a bunch of weapons. And I mean, what do the Saudis need $2 billion of weapons for, Sterl? I don't know, to protect themselves, or are they actually going to step in and help? I tend to think they're going to step in and help.
So I think there's two different parts to that statement. So the NATO thing, I think Europe, for better or for worse, Europe has been able to kind of ride the economic coattails that you get when you don't really have to pay for your own defense. And that's not hyperbole. That's the reality.
That's
Germany
facts.
basically had no military. The UK doesn't have a military that can actually do anything anymore. And to the point that their own defense ministers resigned because of it. Keir Starmer's hot garbage. You've got the Norway, the Swedes.
The strongest European military is Poland by far.
I mean, the second
in a lot
strongest.
Of ways. Yeah.
They're certainly more advanced than they were. It's tough to actually to when you really look at what they have and what's available, to say that they have a better military than France. It's a smaller military than Turkey. So of the NATO nations, they're probably they're like fourth. But honestly, I think Russia would get absolutely stomped by Poland, conventionally. But that's not my point. My point is that, if you don't have to spend a bunch of money on your military, that money can be used for social programs and all the other things that we think of when we think of the EU. I think one thing, for better or for worse, because one of the reasons I wasn't a fan of Trump going into this last election was because I was concerned about what he would do with NATO, and I think NATO's really important personally. I think it's forced Europe to start rebuilding their own arms industry. That's a
NATO
reality.
chief Mark Rutte is like in love with Trump and the fact that he's gotten him to spend the money he needs to spend. You know what I mean? It's
Here's what I'll say about that. I don't know. I think you gotta look at it take that with a grain of salt, because NATO knows that in the form that NATO is right now, NATO can't really work without the US. What? Now, if we're talking 15 years down the road, maybe Europe has gotten their act together and has decided that they want to take a more active role in their own defense. If that happens, well, if the US walks, they can still defend themselves.
Yeah.
Right now, I don't think that they can realistically do that if they had to.
Collectively as a whole, probably, but not independently.
It's the difference between. It would be like the difference between getting in a fight 2-on-1 and 1-on-1. Could they still win? Yeah, I think they probably could. I don't think Russia would. I think Poland would stop Russia in its tracks on its own.
I don't even think Poland
hurt.
would have to put boots on the ground to beat Russia, to be honest with you.
I don't know about that. They share, they share a land border with Belarus. They could see, and there's some talk of Russia trying to get, yeah. So
but when I say boots on the ground, I don't think you're putting troops in Moscow. Like I don't think you need to. I don't think you need to put troops in St. Petersburg. I think it's. I think it's literally like.
I think any war against Russia where you would like to not have nuclear winter, you probably have to stop at the Russian border. But that's my
opinion.
What the f do I know?
One thing I will say about Trump's speech last night, just kind of going full circle here, and Xi agreed to buy oil from the U.S. when Trump was there.
Yeah.
Xi agreed to work with the U.S. whether he wanted to or not. Reluctantly, he needed oil, right? So there's some trade. There's still trade that goes on between the U.S. and Russia, or U.S. and America. I do not see a world that exists where Trump comes out and just blatantly says that. He didn't accuse him of changing things. He accused him. You notice he didn't go, hey, you know what? They took Sterling's name and they flipped his vote. He said, no, they influenced elections. And I do think there was probably, and I think, that many countries have probably done that. I think one of the guiltiest actors of it, and it's a controversial thing that I'm about to say, is probably the Israelis. You know what I mean?
That's not what I was going to say. I
do think the Israelis have probably, look, the Israelis benefit from strong Republican leadership more than they do Democratic leadership. They just do.
I think they benefit from leadership in the U.S. no matter which side it's on.
Well, okay, but
here's what I'll say. I think we have to look at this in the lens of reality. Countries do what's in their best interest. And if you think that we're not out influencing elections in other countries, you're crazy. Of course we
Venezuela, we just easily.
Well, I mean, but we're
yeah, I know.
But I mean, we that's a reality. We're going to go and try and that's what
in today's world with the cyber landscape is going to happen, man. It just happens.
That's what the NSA, CIA.
The reason why Mark Zuckerberg gets called before Congress like once a year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so all countries are influencing each other's elections. Here's what I'll say about the SAVE Act. We know that voter fraud happens because we just watched it happen in California, rounding up homeless people and offering to pay them, give them 2 hots and a cot for the night to go vote for your candidate.
Yeah.
That's voter fraud. The only reason that I can think of, all right, I'm going to talk about something.
Well, can I ask you a personal question before we even do that? And I'm just kind of curious. What world exists where you don't feel comfortable showing your ID to vote with your?
here's what there's a term. Uh, Give me 2 seconds.
It's
I'm gonna
called
probably
cheating?
cut.
Is that the word you're looking for?
No. Well, yes, but oh,
I'm sorry, I just don't understand that part because I gotta show my ID to do many things in this country.
yes.
Hell, I gotta show it when I go to the doctor. You know what I mean? Like, why
Um,
wouldn't I don't know.
I agree with you. I think it's
I just don't understand why people, like, can't understand or fathom why we would
okay.
want people to show an ID when they vote,
So I'm gonna
you know,
cut that
other
part
than
where I'm.
cheating and power, you know what I mean?
So think about
Yeah.
save that. I'm gonna cut that part where I had to look this up. Um. So here's how I'm gonna put this. Uh, this whole idea that because saying that minorities are unable to show an ID because they can't go to the DMV because of reasons. That
'Cause
is
they're gonna be deported? I mean,
well,
come
no.
on.
So their argument is the argument against it, and the only argument that I've ever really heard is that voter ID would disproportionately affect people of color because they don't have ID apparently.
How do they buy cigarettes? How do they buy
I
alcohol? How do
listen.
they drive cars?
You're preaching to the choir, and what this is. So
How do
this
they
is
go to the doctor?
so there. Once again, this is kind of the whole. We've talked about this before, but in my opinion, I think this is a subversive form of racism. It actually has a term. This this is called the soft bigotry of low expectations. Is the actual term for this, and so basically it's this subversive undercurrent type racism where it's like, well, it's like that. It's like Gavin Newsom saying, "I'm I did bad on my SATs. I'm a idiot just like you guys,"
Yeah.
or this the governor of New York saying, these poor students in these ethnic minority communities, they don't even, they've never seen a laptop before, and
Yeah, they
it's
don't know how
just
to turn
like
a PC on.
and it's just you're the again. My preference is that people. One, I'm a big believer in in the equality of opportunity. I think ideally everybody has the same starting point, and then it just comes down to your God-given abilities and your work ethic. This whole idea that it should be, you know, the equality of outcome, well, that's communism, and that doesn't work.
Let me
And
ask you
never
a
has.
question. Does it feel like to you, like, when I say this, would you agree with it? That in an effort, because I don't think that all Democrats come from a place of inherently like, "Oh, let's be racist. Let's hold these people down." I think some of them wanna cling to power. I think anybody that is in power probably wants to cling to power at some point, right? They're enjoying the perks of the job and being the senator and being the congresswoman and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Both sides, though. But I feel like this their argument applies more to, like, inner city Chicago, inner city New York, inner city Los Angeles, and kinda, like, those urban areas, and I feel like in an effort to come up with an excuse, they're becoming a handcuff to these inner cities and holding them down more than they are helping them up.
Yeah, well, one, I would agree with that. Uh,
Like, it doesn't feel very empowering to me for them to say, "Oh, you can't Sterling, as a black man, you don't have access to the same ID that I have."
which
Like,
is
that
one of
just
the
like,
dumbest
that
things on the
just
face
that
of the planet. It doesn't
we
pass
both go
the
to DMV at the same time, we get a number and we wait in line.
yeah, it
I mean,
it doesn't pass the straight face test. The so
people
one
believe that with a straight
well, because they've spent so much time sniffing their own asshole, they can't see the forest for the trees. You
Because it
know,
blows my mind, man, that you wouldn't want to
again,
pass a
this is
bill that protects elections.
so there's two things that I've talked about this. I burns my ass. I don't like the white savior complex thing. I
Oh,
genuinely don't.
you mean middle-aged white women and their savior complexes? Because that's who it is. Like, let's be real. It's
Uh-huh.
no offense, ladies. Y'all are very lovely people. We think you're great, but y'all got to stop trying to mother people who don't need you.
It's one of those things that you know, I think we're more a product of our environment than anything. We do a lot of talking about, nature versus nurture, that sort of thing. But if the examples that you have set out for you are one way, you're more likely to model those examples as you grow up. So,
Have you
think about
seen?
the
Go ahead.
biggest indicator for success. One of the biggest indicators isn't necessarily where you it's more of the where you came from.
Yeah.
So the question shouldn't be how do we it shouldn't be that everything is inherently racist and the system is broken and we have to no, it should be okay, well, how do we fix
It's
these inner
inherently
cities?
bigoted, not just racist.
It,
That's the
uh,
problem.
it,
You know what I mean?
it
And you want to fix
it's
inner cities, make a push on the nuclear family again, dude. Like the people that tend to be
well,
more
I mean,
successful are the people that I hate to say this and it's controversial, but it's the people that grow up with a mom and a dad in the household
you're
with
not
both
wrong.
parents. No, I know I'm
And
not wrong, and there's going to be some people that offends, and it's going to strike a nerve with some people, but the God's honest truth and the reality is, and the numbers are, back it up, and I don't have the numbers on me, but I can get them pretty quickly, that the graduation rate, the success rate, the ability for kids to go out and be on their own
so
and stand on their own 2 feet
the
is
graduation
2
rate is
parents.
higher. The
Yeah,
graduation so it doesn't even necessarily have to be two parents in the household.
it just has to be a
It,
dad in the picture.
yeah, there has to be. It can even be a step parent. It
Yeah,
can be, as long as there is a male influence, kids are they're more likely to graduate from high school, less likely to commit suicide. I'm going to have to get rid of that. Hold
yeah,
on. They're
yeah.
more likely to graduate from high school. They're less likely to harm themselves. They're
Suffer from
less
mental illness.
they're less likely to suffer from mental illness. They're less likely to be incarcerated. So, you know, I agree with you that, and here's the thing.
And by the
One of
way, guys, we're not saying that, lesbian couples aren't raising we're not trying to be controversial that way. We're just giving you the facts here on
so the reality is that just because what the statistics say don't match your personal narrative doesn't make them wrong, and it doesn't also on the flip side, it doesn't mean that if you're a single mother somewhere that you're a bad parent. That's not what
No, all the single ladies, we love you. Way to go.
this
Raise
is just what
parents.
the statistics say.
Yeah.
You take that for what you will. I agree with you on the reinstitution of the expectation of a nuclear family. I think that's a good place to start. I think that I think that's a big one. And I don't necessarily think that, I think the inner city or the large metropolitan area issue in and of itself is kind of a problem.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, if you can afford to live in the suburbs, great. You work in the city, you live in the
I do
suburbs.
think, though, at some level that the Democrats do hold them down, hold people down
I
that live
agree
in those
completely.
areas and try to handcuff them and anchor them and like kind of tie an anchor to them. And the reason why they're so afraid of Trump and the reason why they push this narrative of Trump so much and who he is and he's this bigot and he's this racist. Well, here's a guy who won the Ellis Thompson Award for inner city work. Here's a guy that has sat at tables with Jesse Jackson and Rosa Parks and MLK, MLK's kids and all these civil rights leaders for years until he ran as a Republican. And the reason why they don't want him there in that way is because the first Trump presidency, what happened? All of a sudden, those urban areas that have been historically welfared had opportunity. And opportunity created mindset that got people. I mean, and that's why when Trump ran again, you saw a lot of people, urban males especially, start to go for the Trump president or, for the Trump campaign and to the Trump side because they're like, well, we had work under Trump. We had opportunity. We didn't have to go out and do these things. We didn't have to grind. There was actually jobs that paid us money for what we did and made it worth it for me to get off welfare, that gave me an opportunity to get out into the suburbs, that provided a leg up. And, so I think it's kind of like what we say, all the time about, and I'm going to kind of switch this a little bit, but it's kind of what we say about Mexico, right? Like you want to solve the problem in Mexico, give them opportunities in Mexico. You want to solve the problem with our border, give them opportunities, build factories there, give them reasons to stay, eradicate, help them westernize and become more of a first world country than a third world country in a lot of their
Well,
rural areas.
most
Same
immigrants,
idea.
most
Opportunity
illegal,
creates
yeah,
investment.
most illegal immigrants don't come from Mexico anyways. They come from
Well, no,
from
but
Central
yeah,
America.
but
Mexico is one of it. Honestly, Mexico should be our China.
yes, exactly.
Mexico has their
Younger
population
workforce.
distribution. Yep, they've got a young workforce. They're well educated. There's some logistical issues as far as movement of goods uh throughout the country, just because of highway system and that sort of stuff. But that's kind of it. Here's the
Create
thing, man.
opportunity in Mexico, and all of a sudden South America stops there. You know what I mean? Like they start
Well,
going
you're
there
not wrong.
because of factories, because they
Let's
start having
let's
opportunities. But anyway, sorry.
let's be honest. There's an industry in Mexico of getting people into the U.S. that's worth a lot of money. And if Mexico has a tiny border with Central America, and if they really wanted to, they could stop a
Yeah,
lot of it. But that's
100%.
we're getting
But
into the
anyway,
weeds here.
yeah,
But what I
no,
wanted to say
yeah,
was, I think we're very much products of our environment. We grew up in the same town. You know, not a particularly urban place, and you know you kind of knew the kids who were going to do something with themselves in the beginning. You know, but even then, I wouldn't call you and I the most studious of people in our younger ages, right? I think we can both admit to that.
I had
We're
straight C's.
we were a bit, you know, for the area hoodlummy. We caused a little bit of a ruckus every once in a while, but there's a difference. We did that in a community where it was like, if you don't cut it out, how many times did we have somebody stop and say they were going to tell our parents
Yeah.
and knew exactly who our parents were? That's kind of the difference.
We were
When we
raised by
weren't,
community.
right. It's a small. I'm not going to say a small community. It wasn't like everybody knew everybody, but 90, probably 50% of the time, somebody knew exactly who you were.
Yeah.
And you couldn't get away with some of the stuff.
You couldn't walk in a room with 4 people and not have them know you. Like it's
Yeah.
just
If
not. Yeah.
somebody there would know who you were.
Yeah.
And like I say, I think there's something to be said about, getting out of some of these areas, for one.
I agree with that, but I think that's part of the problem, right? That goes back to what I was just saying is they don't want them to get out of those areas
No, they
because
don't.
it keeps them impoverished. It keeps them reliant. It keeps them looking for handouts. Whereas Trump was giving them help and getting them out of those areas. And, I mean, I saw more people, like, I'm just going to be transparent here. It is what it is. Where I live, I saw more people move from the city into the suburban areas from 2017 to 2021 than I've seen any time in my life. And, I think in Maine, in New England and New Hampshire and Massachusetts, you saw a lot of people move out of those urban areas and into more smaller city areas and get out of those areas, And so it's just it's hard for me to again, and I go back to this, it's hard for me to understand the mindset of and you're exactly right. It's the white what did you call it? All of a sudden I'm going for a loss here.
White savior complex.
Yeah, it's the white savior complex. It's like there's a guy in Chicago, right? He's probably 24 years old, black guy, right? 25 years old. It's a meme. It became an internet sensation, but it was awesome. He's being interviewed and he's like, "Hey, Karen, why don't you stay home? We're not coming to save you, so stop trying to save us." You know what I mean? And just stay home and mind your own business. And I think that that's part of the problem is I think, you have these people that sit home, and I hate to say it, but the view's still on because people watch it. You know what I mean?
View's getting
And
canceled.
I know, thank God. But people watch The View.
Damn.
People have watched The View for years, and it resonates with and I hate to say this, but it resonates with a group of people that tend to be led by the suburban housewives, and they're typically white, that want to go, oh, like the lady in Minnesota that got shot by the ICE agent, right? Like, why the hell were you out in the middle of that? You got 2 kids, stay home. Donate to a cause. If you really feel so strongly about immigration and homelessness, adopt a family. Bring them into your house. Like, don't go out in the middle of a situation as a mom of 2 kids, raising hell, trying to run over a cop, and then expect that you're not going to have an outcome. Like,
The reality.
sorry, sometimes you got to stay on the sidelines, guys. You can fight better from the sideline.
So here's the thing. A lot of this has very little to do with a deep love of the immigrant community and a belief that immigration reform
Come on, dude. It has nothing to do with that.
Listen, you listen to me here.
It has nothing to do with that.
Honky ass. So deep love of immigration reform, and the U.S. needs a path to citizenship, and I've been fighting this fight for the last 25 years. No, it's because they get to go on social media and talk about, look how great I am. Look at my good deeds. Give me the social credit. Damn,
yeah, it's your fight for relevance. It's your fight for relevance. Like, they're fighting for relevance and optics, and 100%. Not fighting. Like, they don't give a shit.
All this is.
If they truly gave a shit, they'd go down and hand out water and food to the people that are standing on the border, trying to get over here.
But God damn it, they can find time to go stand there with a sign and yell, which
it's pretty easy when someone's paying you to do it.
Well, I don't necessarily think that's the case for a lot of these people. I think a lot of these
sometimes
people really do.
But yeah,
really, I think a lot of these people really do believe in this particular.
And it's less about immigration.
But I don't think
you have to be real. It's been less about immigration the last 10 years, and it's been way more about we hate Trump. He's bad.
Yeah, I agree, because if
Trump derangement syndrome is not a political platform, folks. Just want to make sure you know that. Just because you don't like somebody, I didn't like Obama, but I still wanted him to do well, and I wasn't out here hating on him and saying, oh, this and that and the other. I wanted him to lead our country in a way that he left it better or made improvements or whatever. I'm not sure if he did or didn't. I mean, I think time will tell. But I got to tell you, he made some mistakes on Iran. Sure, but I think a lot of presidents before Donald Trump made mistakes.
I was just going to say, I think there's been a lot of mistakes with Iran.
I think for 47 years we let them be bad actors, and then somebody does something about it, and now everybody's up in arms about, oh, you can't fight Iran. Well, what the I mean, come on, you can't have it one way. We live in this disconnected reality society, in my opinion, where people are disconnected from the facts. They're disconnected from, they like Rachel Maddow, so then they're like, oh, let me listen to Rachel Maddow, or they like Whoopi Goldberg. Oh man, I'm gonna listen to her every day, and her opinions are gonna be mine.
They like Dudefinity, so they're like, let me listen to those two idiots.
But think for yourself, like, what happened to the days of just like a 30,000-foot view? We're so caught in the weeds and so disconnected by distractions that keep giving us all these distractions at our fingertips.
You've got to think about, I think about my when I was a kid. I remember, 7 o'clock, 6:30 hit. 6:30. 6:30 hit.
National news came on every night. Yep.
And every single night. And my parents sat there and watched the national news for that 30 minutes. They watched local news, they watched the national news. It wasn't a 15-second clip. I'll give you an example, dude. I got kind of butthurt about this, and I had to say something about it. But I was, perusing Reddit, as I do from time to time, which, incidentally...
That's actually kind of coincidental, because it's called Reddit, and you can't read. So how does that work?
Anyways, so I'm perusing Reddit, and there's this, and I just stumble across this thread, and it's a bunch of people up in arms. They're like, and it's this video, and it's like XAI's data center in Memphis uses these turbines and yada, yada, yada for power generation, blah, 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 pollution, yada, yada. and it's showing what it's complaining about AI, right? It's it's the worst. They're just the pollution, and it's showing images which are very obviously of oil refineries, not XAI's data center at all. It's oil refineries. And I'm like, okay, that's, and then it's this
Hey,
video,
you don't
and
know
it's,
what you don't know, bro. You don't know what you don't know.
I mean, I thought it was pretty obvious.
Yeah,
I looked at it,
to someone who actually takes the time to look at something
well,
once in
and
a
then I'm
while, other
like,
than listen.
and then I'm like, well, before I chime in on this ridiculous topic, why don't I just go and Google what XAI's data center looks like in Memphis? And I'm like, oh, it looks like a building and not an oil refinery. And then I think my favorite part was it was lost on them that this video complaining about the use of AI and how it was going to ruin the environment was made. Bet you can't guess how it was made. By AI, just totally lost on them. Those AI bastards just out there killing puppies and
I want to ask you
dumping
something,
oil
dude.
in the fields.
How would we do this? But I think there's a social experiment that would be really kind of cool. What if people had to listen to the news and not watch it? What if I'd just be curious to know, like, if I couldn't see you and I didn't know what you looked like and I heard your news, would I believe it? I'd just be kind of, you know what I mean? Like, I'm kind of curious if it's like something to do with, like, again, I feel like the news has become a popularity contest that resonates with people. It's kind of like winning homecoming queen or, prom king or whatever. I just think it's a popularity contest, and I think there's people that are likable. It's like, I mean, and Fox is guilty of it. I mean, Sean Hannity is one of the most popular news anchors in the world, right? So, people love Hannity. But at the same time, people know who Hannity is. They've seen him. He's on, and it's just one of these things where I think I'd just be curious to know if the news
And
was
then they're
not
like,
videoed.
let me get this big titted blonde chick to start talking about the news, which is fine. I see no issue with that. But it's just like
Have you seen
can
the
look.
weather? Have you seen the weather girls in Mexico? Come
I
on,
know.
man.
I get it.
In Central
But
America.
it's one of those things. I agree with you. They 100%, like there's a reason that they use really good looking women on Fox. There's a reason that they've got Rachel Maddow with her short hair and her
Well, and they usually
man
clean
suit.
up. They usually clean up dudes. There's a reason why they wear 3-piece suits, and they take guys that are usually, I mean, they're not taking somebody who's 400 pounds, 500 pounds and putting them up there. They're putting somebody up there like Michael Strahan, perfect example. Played football forever, super jacked dude, in shape, like, his whole life and everything else. And then all of a sudden he's relevant, is on the Today Show, like, or whatever he's on, Good Morning America, whatever. Yeah,
Sure.
Good Morning America. But whatever. I mean, it's kind of like, what is the relevance other than he sells because he can speak well? It's kind of like,
that's it.
it's kind of like,
That's the extent of it.
well, it's like Obama, right? Like, I'm not saying Obama was a bad president, but you know why Obama is revered in a lot of places? It's because he spoke well.
Well spoken.
Yeah. If Trump spoke like Obama, people probably wouldn't nail him as much.
I mean, that is a reality. If I have, you think about what the president's job is, and he's basically your representation on the international stage. And man, I wish Trump was better spoken.
But at the same time, I kind of like that he's not.
I don't.
In some instances.
I hate it.
Well, in some instances, I do. Well, okay. I want him to be more polished, but I'm not afraid. I'm not mad that he speaks his mind and says what he needs to say.
No, so there's a difference between.
I wish he would say it more like a JD Vance and less like a Donald Trump.
Who I can't wait for him to be the next president.
Dude, I don't know, man. I don't know. I like Vance a lot. I like Vance a lot, but Marco Rubio
it's not going to matter.
Absolutely killing it. I think it's going to be Vance Rubio. Rubio's going to be vice president. No.
Yeah, sure.
Rubio's going to be vice president. And if we are successful, I could honestly see Rubio being the president for the next, or in the mix after that.
I think Vance is well spoken. He's, he
He's
can
well
take a
made.
joke. I love the fact that they've got that Fat Vance meme, and he dresses up like it for Halloween. I love the guy.
Dude, well, how about the fact that he went on The View, and they tried, and they could not rattle this guy. He was unfazed, he held his own.
Yeah.
You know what I
And
mean?
I love the fact that he was willing to go on there, because you try and get a Democratic, anybody from the Democratic Party to go on like Rogan, even though he's not really a right wing guy. He's
No.
like, eh, he's one of the many, including myself, that were left behind by the Democratic Party because we're kind of moderate.
Well, and you know why you guys all in my opinion, from what I can see, because you all are pretty similar, like the people that were Democrats that were left behind, like those disenfranchised Dems that have started to kind of support the conservative side of things a little bit. Not that you're a conservative, but you're more in line with the reality of what they're trying to do, what the right is trying to do than the left, in my opinion. And I've seen that with a
Yep, I
lot
would
of
agree with that.
disenfranchised Democrats. Now, the thing is I think one of the reasons why so many people have left the Democratic Party and have kind of flocked to the modern Republican Party is because it's the moderate Democrat Party of 20 years ago.
I agree
It
with you.
really is. It really is. Like, we are the Republican Party got smart somewhere along the line. And I think it was when Donald Trump came in. I really do. I think the MAGA movement reshaped the Republican Party, and I think a better name for the Republican Party now is kind of like something like the One America Party or something like that, because it's really become the disenfranchised Dems have joined us. I think your Chuck Schumers of the world would love to come out and say something, but it doesn't sell for them. Like I think some of these moderate Democrats for many, many years probably agree, and they know why it's winning. And then these socialists, you can't fight it. You know, it's in their party. They have to look like they want it, because how else you put a uniformed party up? And you basically took your whole life getting in power, running as a Democrat, a lot of these people. But, that's why I love guys like John Fetterman.
Hmm.
Fetterman, like, we don't agree on a lot, but he's for our country. And he's not afraid to stand boldly as what the Democratic Party used to be and keep that D in front of his name. He's just not. You know what I mean?
Well, and here's the thing. I think there's two major problems. I think one major problem. One of them's a policy problem. One of them's a social. So the first problem is kind of causing the second problem. The policy problem is that you've got a bunch of young people trying to enter into a job market that really doesn't have space for them, at least in terms of well-paying jobs. They've been told, so here's the thing.
Yeah, but if
They've been,
retirement wasn't so unaffordable,
no,
you'd
well, that's not what I'm talking about.
oh, okay.
Okay, so you've got these young people who have been told, one, go to college. Go to college, get an education. It's
Yeah.
important, and a lot of them should, uh, as long as your college degree has a purpose. So, I liken college to trade school. If you're going to college to get a degree in a field that has need, uh, that's a good idea. That's a good use of your money.
That's practical.
Yeah. Trade school, everybody says, go to trade school. Just go to trade school. Because everybody has said that, there's more people going to trade school. That also means there's greater competition for those same entry-level trade jobs. It's harder to get a job right now in the trades as a entry-level person, as an apprentice, than it ever has been before. So these kids are in kind of this next generation that's just entering the workforce is kind of in a rough spot. Where do
They
they
are, but
find
there's a lot of factories and shift work that have come back to America that I feel like
not enough. And not enough, and for one, not enough, and two, they don't you've got the two biggest areas of people who are looking for work are workers who are highly experienced and they're at kind of the tail end of their career. And you've got people who have almost no experience
yeah.
and are at the beginning of their career. You and I are not the people with the problem. It's the people who are coming up and just trying to get into the workforce. So, Gen Alpha? Is it Alpha? Alpha's the one
Uh,
that's just coming in, right?
X, Y, Z, K, P, T,
Whatever.
Q, R,
The
D.
these people just trying to get into the workforce right now.
Yeah.
Our generation, millennials, are starting to be like boomers and saying these guys, they're entitled and they're lazy, and to some extent they kind of are. But on top of that, or on the flip side of that, this generation of young workers are the ones more than any other in the past that are working multiple jobs. That's a problem. So there's a policy issue here where we need to get good paying jobs that are entry level. Um, I think as the AI bubble, and it is a
That's
bubble, we could talk
yeah.
about that if you want to.
No,
Uh,
it's a bubble.
as that's starting to go away a little bit, there's going to be more openings in jobs. But these entry level positions are hard to get and they don't pay particularly well. And of course these kids are getting disenfranchised.
Well,
I
but
was
here's part
told
of the problem.
if I
Yeah.
spend $250,000 to go to college, I'm going to get a job. And like 30% of them aren't getting jobs in their selected field when they get out of college.
Yeah, but you got to take that. In my opinion, there's an inverse and an adverse to that. And here's what I'll say. While I agree with you, I also think that they need to stop being there. There's a lot of entitled babies in this world right now, in this Gen Alpha. And I think part of the problem is they think everything's owed to them. And here's the thing. You and I both know that there are several of our friends that spent that money and went to school and don't even work in the field they went to school for. Not even close. Completely
I
different
agree with that.
fields. So here's my thing. So you might not be able to be the lawyer you want to be right now. You might not be able to be the business analyst or business development analyst you want to be and start working your way up a corporate ladder. But there are jobs out there if you're willing to do them. They just a lot of them are digging their toes in the sand caver and not willing to choose something different because, well, that's just different. That's not what I was told. And I unfortunately, the thing that separates our generation and the boomer generation and the generations before us is we just did what we had to do. Now, I hear you saying that they're working two jobs, but they're working two jobs because they're not willing to work. They're waiting for their job to come. Sometimes you just got to get in the field, man, and start working. Like,
Again, I
do you
hear
think I
what you're
love what I do? No. Do you think that's what I wanted to do no, that's not even what I went to school. Like when I went to college, that was not what I do
no,
now
I hear
is
you.
not even. So what I'm saying is you just have to kind of be willing to do what you have to do.
I mean, I hear what you're saying. I really do. Like I agree that there is a sense of entitlement, and I see that, my girlfriend, she is a hiring manager and she just has problems getting people to work. And a lot of times it's entry level jobs, quote unquote entry level jobs. At least that's the way the company looks at them. I think they shouldn't be, but regardless, if you have to have a certification and a license, I don't think that it should be considered an entry level job, but that's my own opinion. Uh, so anyways, but she has a hard time getting them to come to work. Uh, and so
It's
I
not
do
to
think
say
that.
all of Gen Alpha's that way. I'm not saying
Well,
that.
no, again, this is not me saying that.
It's not carte
My point.
blanche at all.
My
But
point is that there is some validity. There is validity to what you're saying.
yeah.
I think, but part of the problem is
Oh, we do
that
need jobs too. We do need the jobs too. You know what I
we
mean?
we need we need good paying jobs, and that somebody can go into with no experience and get that on the job training. And
But higher
and that
education
is,
shouldn't cost that much either, and that's something else to
well,
unpack.
I
There's
agree with
absolutely
that.
no reason.
I think
You know,
higher
these
education.
kids, the deck's stacked against them. They're coming out. They can't get jobs in their field. Like I got a guy. You've played with him a few times. Swag. We played Call of Duty with him a couple of times. Swag, all right? Great kid, went to school to be an engineer. Isn't getting a job as an engineer, so what's he doing? He's working at Costco, which, by the way, Costco has great benefits. It's a good career if you want to work your way up through Costco. But, he's not working in the field that he wanted to go to. And you know how much it cost him probably to be an engineer? My guess is it cost him a lot of money. And, that sucks.
Here's the thing. I, y- you know, I think about when I think about college, I work with somebody who has actually doesn't even have the same degree as me because I have a bachelor's and they have an associate's, but they work in the same field. Their degree, because they went to school once beforehand, now they're working, they've got a good job. But the thing they went to school for in the first place, they ended up having to go back to school, and now they've got, over 100 and something thousand dollars in college loans. 130, 140 in a degree. Mind you, when I graduated, again 10 years ago, but college was still expensive at the time. I graduated with just about $30,000 of college of student loan debt, which is a pittance compared to. But that being said, I picked the school because a degree is a degree. Doesn't matter. Like for 99.9% of
Only
the
name
jobs
the
out
paper
there.
that matters is yours.
Yep. For 99.9% of the jobs out there, it doesn't matter what school you go to as long as you get the degree. And on top of that, I didn't live on campus, I worked, I made money, that's how I paid my bills, worked full time when I was in college, and I didn't live on campus. I wasn't paying,
Yeah, but
I went to an in-state school. I didn't go to Duke for a degree,
but here's the
It-
thing, you did what you did what you had to do. You didn't set out when we were kids, it wasn't you wanted to do what you're doing now, but you found something practical that made
yes.
sense, that would give you a good sense of income and everything a source of income and be stable, right? And always be a need. Okay, I get that. And you know what's interesting? You didn't like it in the beginning, or you might not have loved it in the beginning, but now I don't think you could imagine doing anything else. It's like me,
No,
like
100%.
I got into what I was doing and it wasn't like my passion. It wasn't where I thought I'd wind up by any stretch. And now I'm doing it and I absolutely love my job that I have. Like, you know what I mean? So I just think that some people don't know how to I think there's a mental toughness of sacrifice that some people can't do. It's sacrificing yourself to be able to provide long term and be able to grow long term and to make money long term. And I think some people lack that mental toughness to just stand up and go, you know what? This isn't what I want right now, but I'm going to do this because it pays the bills. It allows me to live a decent life. It allows me, it affords me a stable career. And oh, by the way, maybe I'll like it one day. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
I think
I
there's the mental toughness lacking is all.
well, so here's what I'll say. One of the just pointing this out, you know, um, when I started my career, my starting pay, mind you, this was over a decade ago, was 32. I think it was $32 an hour. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure it was $32 an hour. That was when I started my career. Uh, I want to point out that most people right now, if they could make $32 an hour, they would be ecstatic. You're not making that much money working at Costco, nor should you. I'm not saying that, but it's one of those things that they went to college sold this idea that when they get out of college, they're going to be able to have this lifestyle that they obviously are not going to have working at Costco or working at Walmart or working at a grocery store. Yeah, sometimes you got to do what you got to do, but they were sold this idea, and
Yeah, but here's the other
it's
part, dude, of this thing. You said it earlier and people always say it, and it always like strikes me funny when people say this. Get an education. What the hell did I go to school for 13 years for?
I think
Are you
that
telling me that that education isn't enough? Like, come on, at some
it's
level, man, at some level, that education that we go to school 13 years forced of our life for, right? At some level, we need to be practical and we need to say things like, hey, you know what? That algebra class that they took, why am I going to make them pay $5,000 to take a class in college that they already took in high school and that they T on? And, like I've got a real issue with some of that. So I'll tell you, one of my favorite things that we do now is we offer an associate's degree, when you graduate. All right. So One of the things that I love is that now because we live in a society that says that the high school education courses that we took for gen ed isn't enough and they're going to charge us a bunch of money for it. I love that schools are now giving associate's degrees when kids graduate. Yes, you got to take some advanced classes and everything else, but it's speeding it up. And you know what? Coincidentally, the workforce is getting 2 years younger in a lot of
I
areas because of
I
that.
don't think that's the wrong thing to do.
No,
Uh,
not at
I,
all.
I I just think that if you're gonna go to
But letting
college,
people take classes like Native American basket weaving and charging them $5,000 for it, dude, like, come on, let's be practical. Take the classes. School should be based on what you're going to do with your
first of all, it's underwater basket weaving.
well, whatever makes you
Uh,
happy, bro.
no, I agree with you. I think one of the things that has to that, and we don't really talk to these kids about this. I don't remember I never got anything like that in school.
No.
But what are you going to do, and what does that job landscape look like when you graduate 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road? When I graduated from my career, from college for my career, one of the things that before I graduated, one of the things I looked at was, what does this job market look like? And I'm like, well, the baby boomers are retiring. The population's getting older. There is going to be a need for this for the
You did a
foreseeable
deep dive
future,
and made sure you made a good choice.
and made sure I made a good
Yeah.
choice before I
Well,
spent my
see,
money on it.
I'll tell you another thing that I think needs to change
In
is I
fact,
think,
the initial thing I was going to go for, the market was vastly
yeah.
oversaturated, and I got out of it.
Well, but here's the thing, dude, too. Like, I think part of the problem is we get to high school and about sophomore year, late sophomore year, we start having conversations about, okay, where do you want to go to college? What do you want to do? I think that your entire education every year should be an evaluation of where you would fit well, what your personality is developing into, what your interests are. And I think it should be very career focused, even though it's education. And I think you'd find more kids choose careers wiser. You know what I mean? But they start that conversation a little later, Um, this is in no way bashing education,
No, of course not.
you should stay in school and you should probably stay a dude.
I'm the king of my driveway, mowing lines so straight. Got a toolbox full of glory, and a mortgage by the plate.